Mass Effect is a science fiction video game made in 2007 by BioWare. BioWare is a company that heralds itself as a producer of content whose focus is story, or at least having the story being on equal ground with art, lens flares, and gameplay. Examples include the Baldur's Gate series, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age, and Lair of the Shadow Broker. After choosing one's backstory and military background for Shepard, the hero, we get an intro acknowledging that choice and are told of the protagonist's chosen status.
That's the only kind of person who can protect the galaxy.
This is a simple way of introducing and telling the player what's going on and why they're important. It's generic, but simple. We're then given a quick description that some sort of Mars exploration discovered alien technology, which gave humanity advanced space travel, and that every other civilization, various aliens, refers to this technology as the Mass Effect. Though not too important to the narrative, this is an easy way of explaining the title, since a title is like a window into the entire media. Provided you can read everything within the time limit, it's simple and clear. The Mass Effect impacts things like why there's artificial gravity, shields, or people with magical telekinetic powers. Essentially, things that deal with gravity or gravitons and the like. After a montage of pushing people out of the way, our commander Shepard gets thrust into an important mission on Eden Prime, a human colony out in the Terminus system that involves securing a piece of ancient technology from the galaxy's precursors, the Protheans. This is important because it develops what we were just told about our setting.
The last time humanity made a discovery like this, it jumped our technology forward 200 years.
The Council, a group of various alien species who work toward a galactic community, is also interested as...
Obviously, this goes beyond mere human interests, Commander. This discovery could affect every species in Council space.
And there's another political reason this mission is important, because Shepard is going to be evaluated by the Spectre Nihilus. Spectres are above-the-law agents of the Council. The Alliance, the human space military, wants Shepard, the best of the best, to be the first human Spectre. This, as the Alliance sees it, is one of the first steps to getting humanity a political seat on the all-alien Galactic Council. So, we're told of a situation of great political, social, and technological importance when suddenly things get even more interesting.
This mission just got a lot more complicated.
We're all set to go, but Nihilus prefers working alone as our scout. It also appears he owns a parachute, or maybe he's a biotic and can control the Mass Effect fields before he jumps out of our spaceship. It also appears we can do that too, since we magically hit the ground somehow. Maybe we have repelling gear or something. Despite being a trained soldier and being born and raised on Eden Prime, our enthusiastic Corporal Jenkins gets destroyed by these flying drone things which looks like they came out of an old Star Trek episode. This all happens so we can pick up our female supporting character, Ashley Williams, because we can only have 3 bodies to a squad. Okay. Williams tells us our opposing force is the Geth, but Alenko says they haven't been around for 200 years or so. We then discover the beacon is missing and has probably been moved, as we're off to search for it, and we get a third-person omniscient viewpoint of our Spectre scout Nihilus, who's encountered his colleague Saren. As the viewpoint switches back to us, we hear the contextual death of Nihilus as Saren's gun has supposedly killed him. This effect does a few interesting things. It combines the previous third-person omniscient scene, which only we the viewer are aware of, with the current view of the protagonist in a neat and quick way. It's efficient and easy to understand. Shepard's squad could have just been walking up that hill and all this took place during that time, and that simple gunshot connects the 2 viewpoints. Eventually, Shepard will have to be aware of this scene or else risk a great issue, which is a disconnect between player and player character. In some cases, that's not a bad thing, but here it would be. If this was a contemporary setting, we wouldn't be confused, but didn't Nihilus have shields? We've just seen 2 other cutscenes where shields were involved. One was blown away after a barrage of bullets, and one protected the user. So what happened to Nihilus's shields? Aren't they supposed to protect people from pistol shots, even at close range? Did Nihilus get into a fight? Was Saren's gun really that strong? We now get a physical and social understanding of the environment and the plot. For the environment, we understand a gunshot can be heard from further away, which also implies our gunshots can be heard from further away, which would have been causing even more noise, perhaps attracting attention should there be any more opposition. But no such enemy behavior occurs. This also means the location of that scene is not too far off. For the plot, we now know our above-the-law Spectre just got upstaged by one of his colleagues. And from the single deafening gunshot we hear, it appears he has become the story's sacrificial lamb. This causes even more conflict as things are going wrong, with already 2 character deaths. Immediately after, the tension goes up another notch with this.
It's a ship! Look at the size of it!
We shoot some more Geth and discover where Nihilus and Saren were talking. Just in case that whole preceding gunshot from the third-person omniscient viewpoint was too unclear for some, we get some dialogue from a witness that clearly explains that Saren shot Nihilus in the back and where we need to go next. After a Blade Runner vibe kicks off with fighting, we take a cargo train to find out Saren's going to destroy the entire colony with 4 oddly placed explosives. Now these demolition charges must be extremely powerful since he's trying to destroy not only the colony, but all traces of them being here, which implies those weird spiky things all the way at the beginning of the level. Let's not forget we just took a cargo train to get here, so I can only guess these charges have several megatons of a nuclear payload. Remember, those spikes are at least a kilometer away, or else they wouldn't need it to build a train for such a short distance. The spikes are also hidden behind hills and rock. We're also not too sure how Saren got back to his flying juggernaut of a ship since it lifted off from the ground a while ago, and he's only now making his escape, let alone the Geth who are making escape after the charges are set. Maybe Saren had a shuttle or maybe a landed Geth ship? Makes you wonder why that juggernaut ship landed in the first place. So anyway, Shepard manages to disable the demolition charges, defeat the opposition, and finally discovers the beacon. Depending on your sex, the squad mate of opposing sex will get pulled in by the beacon, and Shepard dives in to rescue them. This causes Shepard to go under the same experience Saren was just in, where we see a muddled version of destruction. Even though it did the same anti-gravity thing with Saren, this time the beacon explodes and knocks Shepard out. Regardless as to why this happens, Saren's supposedly back on his juggernaut of a ship after learning about a human possibly using the beacon. In typical violent bad guy fashion, isn't too happy about it. After 15 hours, Shepard wakes up. Anderson tells us that Saren hates humans and that he's allied himself with the Geth, and this is all an act of war. While Anderson is contemplating what data was actually in the beacon, how would he know that Saren took the data from the beacon? The player had a third-person omniscient view of Saren using the beacon, and aside from Shepard, there's no other scene showing Saren or others having used it. And why would he believe that after Saren supposedly used the beacon, inferring that it was used in the same way that Shepard used it, that it wouldn't have exploded? What if Saren purposely booby-trapped it so it would explode because he couldn't use it himself, and it was his little insurance policy in case the demolition charges failed? Now, it's logical to assume that Saren got what he came for, which is why he left, since he was going to destroy the entire colony anyway with the demolition charges. But it is not logical to guess what that reason for coming here was, or its outcome, aside from destruction, if they were just employing a scorched earth tactic. They moved the beacon for a reason, but no one save the viewer knows what came of that. This is another discontinuity in the narrative where people simply know things that weren't properly explained, or going on guesses that make sense with what the overall narrative shows and tells us, but not what the characters know. Anderson's opinion has to be accompanied by an outright refusal or disbelief by the protagonist, or someone, so the random characters just believing things on hunches, who are essentially trying to explain to us a possible plot, have to be accepted by others, and then by the viewer in some rational fashion, or else events get contrived by character speculation. We can just chalk this up to Anderson knowing Saren and what he'd do and why from his past experience, but it's not quite clear on how Anderson comes to these conclusions. This is an argument from authority which ends up becoming true. It's like watching Columbo without any investigation. So anyway, we return to the Council to report everything. It appears there is already an investigation on Saren from CSEC, which is Citadel Security. What CSEC has to do with Saren we don't know, but I would imagine that he was previously doing something on the Citadel that caught CSEC's attention, but we're never told. Instead, and I think this is what the narrative is trying to tell us, is this Council appointed CSEC to investigate what happened on Eden Prime with Saren, or some such, while Shepard was unconscious for 15 hours, but that's not even clear. Now, this is a bit confusing because specters are above the law. If an investigation by a law-abiding police officer discovers a specter was doing something above the law, what exactly are they going to do? What authority does CSEC have over the specters? In any event, the person that led the investigation was Garrus, but he couldn't find anything because all of these specter records are sealed, which doesn't make any sense. If the Council appoints an investigation toward their own agents, wouldn't they give the person in charge of that investigation authority to open such records? It's good that it's a third party doing the investigation, but if they have no authority to do their job, it's pointless.